Hey everyone, here we are at the frog pond today, and I'll talk about it in just a moment, but just take a look at the frogs that jump in as I walk around the perimeter. When it's sunny out, they're all over the edges. Look at this. Boom. Wow. A lot of them. There'll be even more around the other side. Oh, there goes another one. Whoa, big one. Ooh. Wow. So as you see, just walking around the perimeter of the pond. Oh, there's even a frog right here sitting in the spillway. You see there's a little trickle of water coming out of here. There's always a slow trickle of water circulating through the pond coming out of the basement of the house. See this drain over here? Always trickling, because usually most time of the year the basement floor is below the water table. So that's why the pipeline's put in. That's why we have this pond here. And yeah, a lot of frogs. So I've been using this thing as a frog hatchery for quite a few years now, and we save tadpoles from the drainage ditches, but that might become a thing of the past because nature always takes its course. We saved a ton of frogs over the first 2 years, but this year, year 3, we rescued a lot of tadpoles. A lot of frogs show up here, the same ones we raised, lay their eggs. Massive amount of eggs, massive amount of tadpoles we've been feeding over the years. We have to actually put hoses in here to circulate the water faster because it'll become polluted. And, well, wood frogs act as toads, pretty much. They leave the water, live in the woods. They only come around for mating season. But because of all the little frogs, every July we produce thousands of quarter-sized frogs, and I guess they're a food source. Green frogs I never brought here. Everything you saw hopping is a green frog, and I think they eat the wood frog tadpoles. They also eat the tiny frogs as they leave the water, and now we have breeding populations of green frogs. There's not as many, but there's still, throughout all my ponds, about 50 of them, and they're pretty big. I like these guys. They're very vocal at night, make a lot of cool noises, and that's okay. Nature took its course. These guys moved in because of the influx of the others, and as a result of breeding frogs in general, we now have a bunch of different types of snakes in the yard, which I'm okay with. We don't have anything venomous this far north. Snakes are fun. A lot of frogs. This pond also has a breeding fish population in there. Accidentally brought a couple of them, I guess. Must have been teeny, but they get about 5 inches, the type of fish in here. They're called creek shrub, something like that. But they're breeding in here. They're good for small bodies of water, streams, little ponds. They can easily live and breed in small spaces. They're a schooling type of fish. There's a group of them that moves around in here times a year when it's not cloudy with algae. That's a big pleasant surprise right there. I bought that at the Home Depot, the lily pad bulbs. Planted them a couple years ago. Only one of them came up year 1 from the bulb. Didn't do very well. Year 2, nothing came up. I thought it was dead. This year, halfway through the summer, all these came up. Hopefully it gains enough energy where maybe it'll produce a flower next season. That would be awesome too. This pond, we also have this air stone here hooked up to a solar air compressor. It goes like that because the solar panel's not in direct sunlight. But as soon as it moves into direct sunlight, that'll work a lot better. This is a piece of PVC lumber. Frogs use it as a flotation device. And the green frogs, what's cool about them is certain ones you can become friends with, and they just let you pick them up like nothing. They don't really have much of a fear. So that's what's up with the fish ponds. I wanted to show that. See, we have air lines and little wires coming up here. This is the air compressor going to those stones, and fountain solar panel, air compressor solar panel. When it has full sun, it works fabulous. It'll run non-stop without doing what it's doing. Here's the other frog pond we built earlier this summer. I will mow around it once a year or so, and we keep this because frogs use it as cover. Once the first deep freeze happens, I'll take down the solar lights, mow right up to the pond. But now it's tree cover, lots of green frogs in here, same situation, they took over. There are some tadpoles still remaining from the wood frogs, but not many. They either turned into frogs already. We feed them goldfish flakes. Look at this, at the part of the rotten log that absorbs water. Look how nice that moss is growing into the water. Up here has gone into hibernation. That little maple tree was there all year. It's starting to turn colors. It's probably gonna die, but it's still alive amazingly through all the hot weather. There's even a tiny little fir tree growing right there. But again, lots of frogs, and if you ruffle your feet near this, more frogs will hop in. No fish in here. That solar fountain's not working at the moment. That's an overflow to keep this pond clean. Over here, there's a hose set to a sprinkler timer, runs 3 hours every 3 days to keep the water fresh. And it actually grew in enough, or sunk into the lawn enough, the hose. We don't even have to pick it up when we mow anymore. Cattails are really good at purifying water, and we even have a cattail, first one, after a couple years of having those. Now this big fountain right here is actually solar powered with this panel right here. We have another panel right here. I guess I have to trim around it for it to work properly, but that's a sprinkler right there that comes out of this frog's mouth. I purposely planted hostas here to give the frogs more cover. They can hide in that. And look at all this beautiful moss. I love how the waterfall starts getting that stringy algae. It's just fantastic. Let's see if I pick this up a little bit. It was yep, the frog is starting. See it? I just have to do a little bit of trimming around here, but I keep the overgrowth because it helps the frogs, and I'm a bit lazy. Over here on the edge of the woods, this really overgrew. These little ponds here, see, we have little fountains here just to keep the water purified. Over here, and I was lazy to trim it, so I just sprayed it with vinegar. You see, it kind of killed the plants. It works pretty good as a, we don't put things like Roundup near the water. Use vinegar, it kills most things, and it's safe for animals. Right here's a bunch of frogs. They don't care that it's kind of reddish. And because this silver pond, for some reason, the tadpoles always get eaten by birds. Now these guys are here, and they're definitely feeding on the tadpoles. Over here in this pond, we have a lot of mud in here, which is able to sustain cattail population. It actually grew a few cattails, and the gravel one right there does not enough nutrition or places to anchor, so the cattails are underperforming. But over here, they did awesome. I'm glad we got some cattails. There's still a couple tadpoles in there. So we just took off the sprinkler timer on this one because I feel like there's not enough of a population to be polluted that often. But it was also set to a sprinkler timer, and it would slowly go through this filter right here with a drilled hole, just so tadpoles and creatures wouldn't get on the ground out of the water where they'll die. This one also has that little thing there, so if it overflows over the top, little tadpoles and stuff will get out and die, but they won't go through a filter like that, which is a good thing. Every one of our ponds has some sort of ladder escape like that, so creatures can get out of it. Things like a mouse, if it falls in there, doesn't drown. This one, you may notice, doesn't have the ladder because it can obviously use the cattails and other things to get out of it. Over here, the cattails aren't very adequate. But even though, we got overgrowth, so that's going to become unnecessary. But also, that acts as a ramp for frogs to get in. And they can also use these rocks that are here so they can get in and out of these ponds. Got some beautiful flowers over here on our way to the next frog pond. Here we are at the next frog pond. This rose bush is scraggly, but it's been there 3 years. I got that on the discount shelf. I buy a lot of my perennial plants when they go 90% off right before winter. You plant the bulbs in the ground, the roots, and it comes up next year usually pretty fine. I think it's growing slow because the soil's very sandy. I never added much there. I did put a little peat moss. This used to be a really big bush, but I had to cut it back because it started dying. Hopefully it bounces back. Deer defoliate that every single winter, never fails. Oh, a lot of frogs here too. I gotta fix this moss filter. It's not working great at the moment. It slowly trickles, so slow. Not for aeration. Actually, the moss probably adds air, but that is moss filter like that's a really good way to purify the water. That's the solar panel for it there. The power head underwater going to that is jammed. Now these are not anchored to the bottom, they're just floating in here. But wow, look at that. The frogs love it because they can hide underneath it. It's a floating island now. Look at that. Look at the roots, went crazy. And that's a really good purifier. The tadpoles in here are also already turned into frogs and or eaten. That little fountain here is trying to operate, but it's not getting adequate sunlight. That's okay though. Just wanted to give you all an update. The frog ponds are super healthy, and we have converted from wood frogs to green frogs. I actually like the green frogs better since you can hang out with them all year. They stick around. Wood frogs are like toads. They hide in the woods. You don't see them until mating season again. But these guys are pretty cool. Haven't had any. Maybe we had a couple of bullfrogs. We had some really big ones, but they disappeared. Every time it rains, they leave the ponds. They go hunting. Anytime it's a rainy day or it's a moist night, they don't dry up, so they leave the ponds. They can't go out during the sun because they're slimy and they'll dry up. Anytime it's rainy, they leave the ponds in search of food, crickets. Sometimes they find another body of water. Sometimes they never come back. Who knows what happens if they got eaten or whatever. Every time it's very rainy, certain frogs, like the really big ones I recognize, they'll just go missing. Sometimes they come back, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you get new giant frogs. It's pretty cool. Every now and then you'll see even a leopard frog out here. All right, so we're gonna go into the woods area now and check out one more pond that we have out here. So having little sources of water like that really help the animals and stuff. There's also water bowls I keep clean at all the dug wells that are randomly out here in my woods, because this used to be a logging camp. That's why this part of the woods is flat. That was back in the 70s, 60s. But the wells are still here. They were abandoned, capped. But I drilled through the caps, put some nice wells in where I pumped water and keep certain bowls filled. The water also attracts deer, bear, anything that wants a drink when it's dry out. This area right here was always a wet area. Made a little trench to concentrate the water, then built this bridge. This area here always fills up with water when it's rainy. Sometimes tree frogs lay eggs, then it dries up and they die. Put this here as an incentive for them to lay eggs in here. If I find eggs there, I scoop them up, put them in here so they'll live. We don't actually put frogs in here because I feel like it's not the nicest thing to do. Tadpoles will develop slowly in the shade. This is also a small pond, so it will freeze solid. If the water's deep enough, like my big pond is almost 4 feet deep by design, so things can survive the winter like fish. That other pond's also 2 feet deep and underground, so that one probably could maybe not freeze solid also. But yeah, tadpoles, the more heat they have, the more food they have, they can turn into a frog in only a couple months. If they don't have adequate heat, sunlight, it could be a tadpole for more than 1 year underneath the ice like a fish. And in something like this, we don't want to encourage it because it's shady and they're unlikely to actually develop. But there's a few frogs here that just showed up on their own, and like all the ponds, they have the emergency escape, little dirt hills so other animals can get in there. I've seen bears drink from this pool. I've seen raccoons washing their hands throughout the woods on all these trails that we have. We have trail cameras and stuff to catch animals, wildlife. There was a mama bear and one cub that came through here a couple days ago. There was a bunch of coyotes, deer. They use the trail because it's easier than walking through the vegetation and all the debris. They'll use the trails because it's easier. Same reason animals walk in the road when the snow is really deep. It burns less energy. That's why things like that happen. So here's a big clearing. Anytime there's a blowdown in the woods, I always clean it up, stack it into logs. The piles can rot here, become habitat for lizards, newts, that kind of thing, snakes. Or if I need it before it rots, we'll ship it back on the trails with wagons, burn it. Otherwise, it's out of the way. If I left all these trees that blew down, this was probably at least 20 trees in this area, 50 during that storm. We also raked everything into this pile where things can live in it. But if we left all this debris all over the ground, it creates a dead area. And when you have a dead area, it takes a while for that to rot. But if you clean it up, it starts the vegetation cycle. It usually comes back with a bunch of berry bushes for like 5 years, attracts a lot of bears. Part of my yard with a lot of berry bushes, they all got crushed down flat because the bear went in there and ate them all. And that's okay. That's natural food for the bear. And we don't mind seeing the bear as long as it stays out of the trash cans, which we put ammonia cleaner in the trash can. Once they get a whiff of that, they don't go through your garbage anymore. But after a few years of this, trees will start growing up through the berry bushes, which help keep moisture against the ground for seedlings to get going. Eventually the raspberries get shaded out, then they die out, turns back into a forest slowly over time. But areas I didn't clean up like this, there's still dead zones. See where the trees are laying on the ground? Nothing's growing underneath this stuff. Sunlight doesn't get there, it's very dry. But a little bit of vegetation, grass, whatever grows makes the ground wetter for trees can take root. So that's what we do around here. As far as the frog ponds, wanted to give an update about that because I haven't done many updates this year. I usually make lots and lots of videos of feeding the tadpoles. We made a video earlier this year feeding watermelon to thousands of tadpoles, but this year the bigger frogs moved in, snakes moved in, so we don't have as many to really make videos of. Nature found a way to balance itself out, and we're not going to do anything about that. It's okay. That's the goal of creating wildlife habitat. We saved some frogs. It created a bigger population of everything else because frogs are a prey animal. In reality, frogs, we gave them a very good population boom for a couple of years. Frogs in the wild, usually 90% of the tadpoles don't even get to be a frog. Things eat them, they're prey. And then the 10% that becomes a frog, maybe 1% of them will even live to reproduce. They're a food source animal, bottom of the food chain. That's what they're there for. That's why bigger frogs ate them. Snakes showed up. Everything balanced itself out. And I hope today's video was interesting, everybody. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.